Hey, welcome and thank you for tapping into Critical Thoughts. I'm Braxton Smith, your host. Joined with me is my co-host, Jake Bird,
Buddy?
fellow admin. Okay, so today we're going to talk for a moment about the 2016 presidential election. Looking pretty dismal right now, right? Got Hillary Clinton all over the place, plastered all over the place. It's already been made abundantly clear for several years now that she has been selected for this election cycle. So we know she'll win at this point, and it's seeming pretty hopeless, right? But we do have a strategy, though. Jake and I and a lot of other think tanks out there have been coming up with strategies for how to beat this. And the consensus seems to be to try and stop it in Congress. Before I wanted to get into that, though, I wanted to throw a little analogy. I was on the phone with Jake, and something I noticed about this whole election cycle is you have two groups of people, right? You have the Trump supporters and the Hillary supporters. And you ask the Hillary supporters, well, why are you voting for Hillary? And they say, because if I don't, they'll vote for Trump. And the Trump supporters are, if I don't vote for Trump, they'll vote for Hillary. It's just like that scene on The Dark Knight where you have the two boats in the bay and you have those two groups of people with their fingers on the trigger, you know. And they're like, well, what if the other boat presses the button? And see, Jake, I had to explain to him, though, that's a movie, though, so this is real life. And in real life, they both
Yes,
go
of
boom.
course.
It's done. Joker wins. But, on the bright side, there is a way we can get around this. And I believe, and it is by paying more attention to who we elect as our senators and our representatives. And this is something like even I, as involved as I am with politics, honestly, I don't know anybody that's running. I haven't known anybody that was running for senator and representative other than a couple of guys that have made themselves abundantly clear, like not abundantly clear, very, very, very prominent names, I guess you could say. I don't mean to completely talk you out here, Jake, so stop me if there's something you want to interject with. But first, I wanted to lead with exactly how disrupted these people can be. You think about you're thinking right now maybe they can't make much of a difference, but may I remind you that, for example, Rand Paul made a very staunch defense against having the Patriot Act reenacted. And there's a couple other bills that he managed to block. And even Ted Cruz himself, the betrayer, he had a moment of glory where he held a bill off from, just one guy held a bill off from going to the president. So consider that. And consider right now, though, it's interesting how lately we've just been looking at presidents like that's the only person we're looking for. We're looking for our Julius Caesar, our person to save us. We're looking for one empirical leader, like to rule this empire. So I'm thinking we really need to get away from that. We need to get back to the roots our founding fathers intended, was that we have more than one person to represent us, and one person to keep that executive branch in check, because they've listened to you. They've listened to everyone voting, even myself. I'm pulling for this one guy. They're listening to that, and what they're hearing is that you want one strong leader to make the rules for everybody and to be unchecked. Congress has a very low approval rating, even lower than the president. So, everybody just wants Congress to shut up. Nobody even knows what the hell the judicial branch is anymore. And all they want is that executive branch to just make the rules for everybody. So something we need to really keep in check. Is there anything you wanted to interject on that?
Yeah. I wouldn't say so much making sure that there's more than one person to represent us, but there is a fundamental breakdown of the separation of powers. There is a reason why we didn't try to go with the glory days of the Roman Empire as our political model. We see where that goes. We've read about it. It's not pretty. Never has been. And there's also the erosion again. As Brack said, most people don't even know what the judicial people do most of the time, except in those real big major cases that you always see those big headlines about, but you don't know the inner details about. And even though they're supposed to be the most farthest removed from the politics, because of the breakdown of separation of powers, they themselves are becoming more political. And we need to make sure we firmly establish not only the limits of the president, but the active powers of what Congress is supposed to be. And hopefully that'll depoliticize the third branch once the other two get finally marked.
Right. And so something else I wanted to point out is I wanted to kind of think, if you will, I kind of want to interact with you, the audience. I can't do it right now with chat, so the comments below, we haven't figured that out yet. But I would like you for a moment, as you're watching this video, to think about the last truly great, remarkable president we had. Some of you might say Reagan. I would disagree, but still, even then, that was decades, right? Some of you might say John F. Kennedy. That's okay, I'll grant you that, but still, decades ago. I myself, I haven't really been impressed with a president since Calvin Coolidge. Been a century ago. What about you, Jake?
Oh, come on, Bryce. Didn't you forget FDR, our hero?
All right, so Jake has no reply. So think about that for a moment, though. Even if you did think FDR, for some weird reason you thought FDR was a great president, I recommend you do more research on that guy. Maybe you'll change your mind. But even then, it's been like, what, a century? But think about, if I were to think about the last time we had a remarkable senator, I would tell you Rand Paul. Again, he made the stand where nobody else would. I mean, he was filibustering, like he was single-handedly stopping a motion that's been created by hundreds of people, and tried to defend our rights. And imagine how much stronger of a stance he would have if, one, he didn't even have to do that because it got voted down because we were paying more attention and we were putting better senators in there to better represent us and back us up on this stuff. And then so far as representatives, we think, at least I think, of his father, Ron Paul. He was to me, he was the godfather of the liberty movement. He himself has also made a lot of huge, epic speeches in Congress. One of his sign-off speeches, his farewell to Congress, is one of the more recognized one. But even before that, his speech about it was the what if speech. He kept it hypothetical because he didn't want to get in too much trouble, but he was releasing a lot of information that just really blew a lot of people's minds. And so, you think with a lot of these elections, the presidential election especially, I'm sure a lot of people are thinking some fishy stuff is going on and that maybe your vote doesn't count. But Rand Paul and Ron Paul are both proof. And even Ted Cruz, I got to kind of hand it to him. He isn't, compared to a lot of the senators out there, even Trey Gowdy, they aren't nearly as bad as some of these slime balls that get in there, like Harry Reid, for example, or Nancy Pelosi. But you have people, obviously, that have some kind of control over to get these very remarkable men in there to actually accomplish certain things and help us realize our goals, that is freedom. Jake?
Yeah. One of the few senators in the past I can think of was Barry Goldwater, and he was one of the few people that started the faint hope that maybe someday in the future, the Republicans might embrace libertarianism and liberty a lot more. And, that ship's done sailed and sunk a long time ago. But, I
would argue we're seeing it come back again. People are a lot more engaged now.
They're more engaged, but can we say that the GOP will somehow see their ways and become the new flagship? No. No.
Yeah, that, like you said, that ship sailed.
And
with Donald Trump, actually even before that, when they let Ron Paul slip through their fingers, a guaranteed win, it was they made it abundantly clear that they were going to pick Obama over Ron Paul. They'd rather the other party win than their own guy because they have more in common with Obama than they do Ron Paul. Yeah, good point.
But that's the thing too. A lot of the reason we don't think about the power of the Congress too much, except in the making of laws, is because we've gotten too accustomed to the president and his executive orders. One thing, wars. Seems like the president can just sign a bill, send a few troops over, and before you know it, we're in some other country for 10 plus years. but it's supposed to be Congress that signs off and formally declares any wars before the executive gets to try to lead the fight.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's another very good point, talking about, all these wars and all this trouble we're getting ourselves in. And, pretty soon I'll have a kid old enough to go to war herself. And, you got drafts, you're talking about lives, not only like the well-beings financially through economics, but we're talking about going to war, the physical well-being, like our future and our children are at stake here. And, there's something we can actually do about it. And I'm doing everything I can right now. So, the day ever comes that my daughter asks me, what I did, and I can honestly say I did everything I could. And, like I was telling you earlier, even to those out there that are apathetic to it all, just thinking they can't do anything, and why even educate yourself? Knowledge truly is power. And, it's like I was telling you, that other quote, I think nailed it. You had another one I didn't really get, but, you may not find interest in politics, but politics will find an interest in you.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot with, all these advertisements. Hillary Clinton's constantly bombarding your subconscious with these ads. And for the most part, people are smart enough to just look at that and just be like, yeah, she's a slime ball. I'm not voting that. But the thing is there's a lot of senators and representatives that do that as well. And really what it comes down to is when you go to the voting booth, you're going to end up thinking, like, you're going to look at these names, you're going to be like, oh, this one looks the most familiar, and you just mark it down. Or, maybe you're just a straight party, so you're just going to go Republican or Democrat the whole way down. If you're, it is possible if you don't know who you're voting for to not vote at all. But I know last time I voted was back in 2008, and that was when I was an idiot, and I voted for John McCain and a bunch of other idiots. And what really sucked, the worst part about that, and I pretty much vowed myself I wasn't going to vote again until I educated myself, was looking at all these other names and thinking, that guy might actually screw me over, but I don't know. So I'm just, oh, he's got my last name, but you know what? Like, I don't know what he's doing. I felt like an idiot. Like, I don't know how people can go to a voting booth and just look at that and just not know what they're voting for. They could be voting for their own demise and not even know it. So and I went on the internet today and we're looking over, you and I both were looking over these candidates, and then 5 minutes, I was actually pretty solidly brushed up on the principles the principles and values a lot of these people had. They're actually very forthcoming with this stuff. So definitely encourage you, if you get a chance to, definitely need to look at some of the candidates in your area. You don't have to memorize all the senators. You just need to learn a little bit about yours, the guys that are trying to represent you. Because letters aren't working. They never, in my opinion, they're the biggest waste of time. I mean, I'm pretty sure their inbox goes straight to the furnace. So the best way to keep them in check, and that was the whole point of us voting, because it's just like Ben Franklin said, we have a republic if we can keep it. And this is how we keep it, voting.
Yeah. The old saying for maintaining liberty in the United States, it's first soapbox, then ballot box, then jury box, then ammo box. Please use in that order.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we're going to have to go. And it's not just the U.S. senators and House of Representatives we need to worry about, but we also need to start paying attention more to local. We need to start flexing more of the states' rights concept and the local concept, because the original idea from the founding fathers was the lion's share of power rested with the people first, and then it kind of floated up until you got to the federal government, and they were pretty much limited, exhausted powers, strictly focused for the running of the nation itself.
Right. Yeah. So I'm getting down to my last few points here, and yeah, that's a damn good one. If you actually have the patience to, highly recommend local politics, because that's the funny thing about it, is this is probably the biggest pain in the ass to look into, but you actually have more leverage there because you're just voting against a few hundred, few thousand, maybe tens of thousands of people, whereas in the national election, you're like, it's like playing the lottery. You're dropping the bucket. You make a little bit of a difference, but not really. It's more like who you're around and who you influence. things like what we're doing right now. We're trying to reach people and have people reach people about the ideas of liberty. Like, hey, let's leave each other alone. That's pretty cool. I think everybody agrees with that. Let's not force ideas on people. And that brings me to my second to last bullet point, principles. Think about your values, think about your principles. And with us, liberty is above all else, because it means not harming someone else. And usually with these policies that go into place, if you think about it, it's forcing ideas, or basically just forcing ideas on people, and oftentimes forcing policies like taking money from them, or exacting harm on these people. And for what? Like with wars, for example, you have wars. You have, so far as freedom of association, you're forcing people into situations they don't want to be in. And that's why we value liberty above all else. But it's very important, and it's really easy. Once you study and learn your principles and know them, you can learn about your candidates like that. Like, you have them figured out real quick who these people are, because there's patterns, and it doesn't take long to catch on to those patterns.
Yeah, one final note with the local thing, every politician had to start somewhere, and usually they either start at the local, or they at least start at state elections before they build themselves up, unless somehow or another they became like a really popular general or something like that, or a TV celebrity now apparently can get you into that bucket. But yeah, principles are a foundational thing, and when it comes to liberty and stuff, the founders also understood that the government is supposed to be your representatives, but it's kind of like a relationship with like a power of attorney kind of situation. They're supposed to be your representatives in good faith. They're supposed to act in your best interest, and if they don't have that power rightfully. And there are some questions that are so important, so unfirmly established in principle, that it is best left up to the people. And sometimes you need to go your own different ways, and everybody needs to experiment a little bit and see which way works best, or maybe multiple ways work best. But that's left best to the people, and not to people that pretend that they know more than somebody else just because they're abusing their representative power.
Yeah, and something I want to touch on, actually, just to finish it off. This is going to be like my last thought, and then I'll let you get in your 2 cents. But you were talking, funny thing, you're talking about, where people start off, and it's it got gears turning. I started thinking about 1984 and Brave New World. I know I always preach to you about that, but there's some really interesting stuff in there, patterns we see repeating, and one of them, they talk about. Both the authors talk about you have to have a cultural revolution. The people have to have their own revolution before you can really have a political one. And you were talking about, some people start local, and I think that's how you have the Renaissance, a new enlightening of the people. But when you have this whole reality TV show guy getting on there, I'm sure many of you watching right now have probably seen Idiocracy, and that's exactly what I think of. And that's exactly, I guess, what our masters think of us, because that's what they're handing us. Is this whole thing has been nothing but a reality TV show, completely devoid of any intellectual properties. It's a direct reflection of society. It's just insane how it works, like how much the politics are a direct reflection of who we are as a society. And so, here we are trying our best to turn that around. And what better time? I mean, think about all this bullshit going on with the NFL and the, Major League Baseball, all this dumb shit going on with that. I mean, what better time to boycott them? We have these elections coming up. Boycott that. Start doing some research. This stuff is like, once your mind actually is able to break this stuff down, it's actually really entertaining. It's so entertaining, you got both of us doing videos on it, for example. But our livelihood is at stake, and so that's also a very important prospect of it. So one more thing I wanted to put out before we let you go, before I turn you over to Jake and then we let you go, is I do understand you're busy. It's all I can do. It's all Jake and I can do to find the time to put together this video for you, and hope that it helps you. And you know, if you have somebody, if you have a politician you have in mind and you think they're a great guy or gal, please, like, put their information down in our comment box. Just run it by us. We'll actually do the research for you if you need to, just to kind of back you up. Sometimes I ask Jake too. I'll be like, hey, what do you think about this guy? I'll throw it out there. And sometimes he finds some stuff I don't like about the guy. I'm like, well, you know, I never heard about this. And I do the same thing for him. So, you know, we're here for you. We have a little bit of extra time. So, you know, if you ever get a chance to, and you know somebody, just throw them out there, and we'll give them a review. We'll let you know what we like and don't like about that guy or gal. So that's about all I got. Jake, what's up?
Well, final thing I would like to wrap up on is, you know, as you said, everybody's got only 24 hours in a day. Some of that's got to be work, some of that's got to be sleep, some of that's got to be family and personal time. And so I think the bare minimum that I would hope anyone would try to do for this process is that if you can't do the research, or if you get stuck to a place where you're uncertain, you try to look like for one person that seems to be completely on the opposite side, listen to their points, see what they say. Get one person from completely the opposite side, hear their points and see what they say. And then you just try to find a third nobody that just seems kind of out on their own and see what they have to say. Just let it mull around in your head for a while and try to form and actually think about this stuff, because, you know, history unfortunately tends to go in patterns and cycles of rebirth, great advancement, and then decline. And part of trying to make sure that at least if the declines can't stop but they can decrease is that we learn from the lessons of history and try to work ever more together in positive direction.
All right. Yeah. Not only that, but you're also engaging more people, and you get them thinking about their own positions. That's a good gouge. That being said, we gotta let you go, but we appreciate your time, and thanks again for tuning in to Critical Thoughts.
Yep. Tune in again to Fight Against the Man. Whoop.